You still got the heart, but you didn't do enough of what you were supposed to be doing to be great at what you want to be great at. Doesn't mean you're not great.
Right.
You just didn't prepare.
Welcome to the Set Up for Success podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Lee, and this podcast is for you, Gen Z. These purpose-driven conversations are catered to young adults who are trying to level up in all areas of life. Whether you're trying to grow in your career, find success, find your purpose, find yourself, this podcast is for you. It's to bridge the gap on where you are now and who you aspire to be. Today's guest is a father, husband, CEO, philanthropist. He's an NBA champion. He's one of the greatest defenders in NBA history. He's also a Queensbridge legend. Sitting with me live in the flesh, Ron Artest, better known as Metta World Peace. Metta, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'll come around.
I know.
Nice. The last time we spent some time together in this setting was the AT&T interview. That was great. And I love what you're doing in your career and the ambition. And it's, you know, in our own worlds, we pay attention to only so much, but I've been seeing your progress and your passion for this space. Yeah. And thanks for having me as one of your early interviewees and different things like that. So I'm happy.
I'm so excited to have you. I was going to ask you, did you peep? I've never heard anyone ask you this, but I mentioned in your introduction, Live in the Flesh, Ron Artest. There's a song that's actually been done after you by Babyface Ray, and I never heard you speak on it. Have you ever heard the song?
I heard the song by Babyface Ray. I actually direct messaged with Babyface Ray. I told him thanks. Yeah. A lot of people were saying, "What are you going to get paid off that song? Where's your royalties?" You know, I'm just like, I appreciate Babyface Ray for making a song. I didn't know who he was until that song came out. Mm-hmm. And apparently he's like an up and coming artist, I think. Yeah. I know his manager. His manager was a great female. From Detroit. They're from Detroit. So that actually made it really cool because I have strong ties in Detroit, big fan base in Detroit. And then it's just, I'm on a different wavelength now. You know, I'm doing more entrepreneurship, some technology, and I'm not as trendy as I used to be when I was a 24-year-old star or whatever. So I'm not up to date on everything, but to still be trending in artists, songs and names. Nicki Minaj had my name in one of her songs. Young Thug had my name in one of his songs. And I'm like, man, maybe I am kind of trendy and cool. I don't know.
You definitely are. You're a legend to a lot of people. And I think the reason why your name always comes up is because you actually exemplify somebody who has really had a journey of triumph and trials and tribulations. And to see you come out on top, I feel like so many artists and just people around the world still admire that and your tenacity with everything that you've done during your whole career.
Well, you know, sometimes I think people let other events determine who they are. So if you're a rapper and you got a big record and it goes well, that can determine who you are. If you're a ball player and you have 50, now you feel good. If you had a moment, maybe you even had a moment, you was at the store and you got in a confrontation with someone that made you upset. And we have, good or bad, we have too many moments that dictate who we are instead of letting our inside dictate who we are.
Right.
So although I had this successful career and played basketball, did pretty well, that was just where I was at in that moment in time. I'm still here. You know, the core of me, the center of me, you know, my chakras is still aligned and is moving along with time. So from that perspective, whatever happened in the past, that's something that happened in the past. No matter how you got there, no matter what situation you was put in, good or bad. But you, me, right, it stands and the passion is there. So whatever I do in my life tomorrow, I was walking on the street yesterday in Santa Monica and this guy said, "You look great." You know? Yeah. And I was, and I'm walking and I'm just like, and I'm looking back, I'm like, this dude just said I look great. And that's a great moment for him. Mm-hmm. That proves that's his greatness. He made someone else feel better. It didn't come in the form of a platinum record or 50 points. It came in the form of giving energy to someone else.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's kind of how I look at life.
I love how you look at life. It is so much gratitude, and you're so present in your being and who you are. And I want to go back to just your childhood and a moment in your childhood or a memory that defines who you are now, if you can think back.
Ooh, I think moments that define who I am now is a couple things. Some things has to do with just me, you know, what I was born with. And then some things is environment, you know, and I think sometimes what makes you great to the outside looking in is what could kill you and can kill your inner self, right? Meaning I had a lot of passion, and people said, well, Metta, you know, Ron Artest at the time can't play without being that angry. Well, the thing they don't see is, yeah, you're entertained, but myself and my family is being hurt, right? So something that entertains someone else is not what's best for that individual.
Right.
You know, so things that made me passionate growing up, maybe hungry or experiencing maybe people fighting in the neighborhood. Maybe you have to fight. Maybe that built your character. But I don't want to build character by having to fight. I don't want to build character by going through trials and tribulations. I want to build character just by going through life.
Right.
Right. So, you know, so from that perspective, some things that essentially made me who I am to the public was probably not who I was at my core.
Yeah.
Right. And if being at my core is something that other people don't like, so be it. That's my best. It's the best version of me. You know, so I think like being passionate, being curious, you know, about science, about math, about other people, you know, having sympathy. It feels good to get back to things that I loved as a child.
Yeah. And so who would you say now, if you could look at who you are now, what do you think defines you?
I think what defines me now is like my mom and dad. They were the type, if we had rice on the table, it was 17 of us living in a one-bedroom apartment at one time. It started out as a 3-bedroom. That place burned down. We had to move into a 1-bedroom. Then we later got into a double apartment in our neighborhood, all in the same neighborhood. If we had friends such as Rapinoid or Big Twin from Mobb Deep crew, or we would literally have rice and beans, and then one of our friends would come over. That's a great example. And now we got to share, right? So that's my mom and dad would give the shirt off their back.
Yeah.
I respect that. I mean, it's not really good when you're trying to set a generational plan for your family, because if you're always giving, you're never going to be set for your children. But, you know, it's a lot of goodwill that comes with that. You're actually helping someone else. My mom would literally say, okay, kids, we got to share this rice now because someone else is hungry. And I like that part about me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Can you talk about that ambition that you had? Because you had a very strong mindset. I feel like growing up in Queensbridge, just reading about your story and listening to those interviews, you had a rough upbringing and you had a lot of things happen early on that really tested you to the limit. And I know you wanted to be great very early on. What made that mindset for you? What made it feel like it would be possible for you to get out of Queensbridge and that the NBA was a possibility?
You know, it was weird. To me, it was weird because the things that made me tough could also get you put in prison. You see, I had to use that toughness and keep it on the court, but the problem was the passion and the emotion that came with how I played could get you in trouble, which it has. You see, so I mean, I do take aspects of it. Like when I was going back to school when I retired, I couldn't find the motivation to study coding and digital marketing, which I know I loved it inside. But I couldn't find the motivation, so I had to dig deep as if I was on the court, diving for a loose ball. I would literally read books with passion.
Yeah.
As if I'm like grinding or I just dunked on somebody. And I would have to grill my face sometime and say, yeah, I don't want to be here, but I'm going to read this book. We're going to get through all 150 pages of this contract.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just
serious.
Like, yeah.
It was serious.
I had to find something like, you know, because I really love the space I'm in now.
Yeah.
And I had to, you know, and I would literally have to attack it like I was playing a basketball game. So it's like, digging deep. What do you have inside of you? And sometimes I wish it was more of a calm thing, but that's not how we grew up. My parents didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
So I got to take the good with the good, and then I got to also find the good in the bad.
Right.
Have some empathy. We don't have enough empathy towards our parents, especially. I'm not going to say only the Black community, because it is a lot of there's a high divorce rate in the Asian community. It's divorce rates in the white community. But I'm going to say just in terms of our community, sometimes we don't have empathy for our parents because we expected them to be great. And because they wasn't great, sometimes, we disregard them as somebody who's smart, as somebody who could sit you down and tell you what to do. As an older OG or a female OG or whatever the name that is, we don't take their words. We say since this is a new generation, and I know you fed me as a child, but I moved on and you were not good enough. That's how we look at our parents versus saying, oh, back in their days, they were just coming out of slavery.
Right. That's real.
They had issues.
Yeah.
That's why we have a high divorce rate. That's why our families are broken up. So just as I think about all this stuff, as I get older, I'm like, man, I got to have more empathy towards our parents.
Yeah.
And towards others like us parents. So I take a lot of consideration as I'm thinking about in my journey.
Yeah, and it's great. And I feel like a lot of young people relate to that, especially because we've seen our parents, especially in this generation. I feel like the mindset with Gen Zers is that we want to be great. We're so self-aware because we've seen what our parents have gone through, so we want to achieve more. But I think the key thing that you mentioned was the empathy. So how do you find that empathy? How do you give them grace? Because sometimes, it's hard for a lot of people to see, okay, I see all the experiences that I went through with my family and the sacrifices, but how can I forgive them? How can I, as an adult, mature and see through that different lens? I think it's harder in their 20s to figure that out. What's your take on that?
Meaning it's harder for them or for us?
For just the next generation coming up.
Yeah, it's true because you got to think about it. We're being taught, hey, when you make it, go to someone other than your ethnicity for generational wealth planning.
Right.
Not saying that's a bad thing, but we don't see the value in us at times. Right. And it's not it's not everyone's fault. We can't just say, oh, all people other than us are the reason. No, it's certain people's fault. And we don't see the value in us sometimes. Now, there are a group of people that do see the value, but some people are not in that orbit. I grew up in the hood, but I'm not in the orbit that you would be in Chocolate City in D.C. or in Atlanta. That's foreign to me. Right. I might as well be in Europe if I go to Atlanta. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then some people take that, my journey and would use it against a person like myself. We just don't understand that. And then we also have, in reality, we have black on black crime. We have a high divorce rate amongst black relationships. And it's not nobody's fault. It's just what we've been through.
Yeah.
It's just what we've been through. So I find the empathy in being curious, not only about tech, science in the future, but also my history. Being curious about what was our history before slavery. I have these different DNA snapshots in my head I feel like, yes, this is a snapshot that I have, and yes, this is it. The gold that was on our, whatever you want to call it, in our setting. Yeah. And I truly do believe that, DNA, I think it is passed on over time. If things are genetic, then these visions I have in my head must be real. So I could actually give myself a good picture on how it was, in the beautiful times before, we lost our art, before we lost possessions, some materialistic possessions and things like that, but also not take it out on the future and the present.
Right.
Because we still need, the biggest test is how do we come together and really enjoy this amazing planet together. That's the biggest test. The easy thing to do is say, yo, I don't like you, I don't like you. Well, when we leave this planet, that's going to continue. That's not what we want. When we leave this planet, we want our children growing up, hey, what's up? What's up?
Yeah.
I'm going to Asia this week. I'm going to Africa this week. Come along with me, right? That's what we want to do when we leave here.
Yeah, most definitely. It's so deep and it's so powerful. And I want to talk to you about the things that you were doing early on, because I know you have a very unique story. You got drafted, #1 draft pick, 1999.
Number 16.
Number 16.
Yeah. One of my best friends is #1.
Right, okay. So what was before that? Was that your first job, or did you have a job before then?
Well, I was going to school. I did pack bags when I was in Queensbridge on a dime block. I think I made, the most I made packing bags probably was like $5. I might have made $35 one day. Other than that, I might have sold lemonade once in my life when I was young in Queensbridge. I might have sold lemonade when I was maybe 8 or 9. And then in high school, I did work at a mortgage place, but I didn't know anything about mortgages, but I did have a job. And then I also worked in Wall Street in college, but it was more like giving a college player a job.
I see.
I didn't apply for that job.
Yeah.
And I did work hard in school. I was a failing student freshman year, 60% D average. Finished my senior year with a 79.8 average, but my senior year solo was a 95. So I went from failing to being an exceptional student. So that was work.
How did you do that?
Just grinding. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm working hard in the classroom. I love math, but I'm failing. Right? So how do I love something? I'm giving 100%, but I'm still failing. So it wasn't that I didn't like school. I just was failing. Some ignorant people will call it a dumb jock.
Yeah.
Right? They would call, this athlete has failed, so he's a dumb jock. But no, we didn't have Kumon. We didn't have tutors. We go outside, we go hang with our friends, we do our homework, we go back to school, but it's not at the pace of everyone else in the world, in different areas in the world. So what I said to myself was just study. And I studied so hard where I passed the SATs by 20 points.
Wow.
That was huge for me.
Yeah.
I would have loved to get 1,600, but that wasn't possible. So I really worked hard, my senior year and kept my head in the books.
So how did you find your major? I feel like a lot of college students, especially freshman year, there's so much pressure. Even their sophomore year, they add, they drop, they switch majors, they don't know. How did you find what you wanted to study?
Yeah, I think, so when I was 13 years old, I was going through a lot. My apartment burnt down on 10th Street. My building was connected to Nature's building. He used to be with the firm. Nature's a big rapper. He was on Band from TV with Noriega. So in Queensbridge, you have a building, but 3 buildings that's connected, right? One building would be one, but it's all connected. The roof is connected. So my apartment burned down, and actually Bars and Hooks Prodigies, Mobb Deep Prodigies artists, Bars actually moved in my apartment that burned down. So when that apartment burned down, I was going through a lot. My parents separated. This is all at 13 years old. So I was just stressed. I'm like, damn, man, my dad not with my mom. Like, all right, whatever. So going back to school after that summer, this is before high school, my math teacher, like, no matter what stress you had, he didn't care. He didn't care that you were hungry. He didn't care that whatever happened in your household. He's like, yo, there's a big, kind of heavyset white dude. He was like, you're going to do your math work when you come here, and he wasn't over the top. I had some teachers, not a lot, maybe 1 or 2 that were just over the top, disrespectful.
Right.
But he wasn't, it could come across as disrespectful because he's white, I'm black, we don't know each other. You talking to me like this? But he made math the focus, like focus on math, focus on your homework. And that just motivated me. So then when I would be in the hood years later, after you come home from a basketball game, go back on Mobb Deep block. That's where the basketball court was. All my friends are their friends. I got to a point where, okay, after we hang out and play basketball, I can't keep just going back home. I don't want to go back upstairs. So I started to buy math books. I would just do math problems. Still hanging around the crew. I would do my homework. I have my book bag with me. And when I finish my homework, I'm doing more math.
Right.
And then that led me to wanting to major in architecture. That led me wanting to major in math. Because that's the only thing I knew. I wasn't good at. I couldn't comprehend. So I'll read a paragraph. And then it's time to take the test. And they say, hey, what does this mean? I'm like, all right, this is what I think it means. And it's like red marks. I'm like, what? I read everything.
Right.
So that's how I fell in love with math.
What do you think about our school systems, though? Do you think, because I'm noticing just in your story and how you're explaining it, and a lot of people relate to that just with the curriculums that we have now and how they teach. Do you think there's a problem with that, or what do you think is the best way to comprehend the knowledge? Like, what worked for you? Was it just repetition, or what was your process like on just trying to get it if you're not getting it?
I mean, I know from the school system perspective, and then how one learns. I think we need to pay the teachers more. Being a teacher should be fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should pull up in something after 10 years.
No, they should.
You know what I'm saying? Being a teacher should be dope. It shouldn't be like, oh, I got to go to school, and then I got to also penny pinch. I got to penny pinch coffee. I don't even know if I should. That shouldn't be a thing. You should be able to buy coffee every day.
Yeah.
Without, maybe not every teacher, but some teachers should be balling.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out ways to share the wealth, because the money's being generated from the mass group of people, which then get funneled to a smaller group of people.
Right.
Because you can do that. If you're smart enough, you can scale. So I think they got to fix that part, and then also, sometimes I think our communities are being policed by people that's not from our communities. So policing and education has a relationship, right? There's a lot of synergy between the two. So if you can create a better environment for don't only send officers when something's going wrong.
Right.
How about to protect an event?
Yeah.
Right? Just you being there, nothing's going to go down.
Right.
Right? And then that can translate to the school. How about just having officers in the school? Or not even officers, just like, call it social workers and different things like that. And then how about free tutors and putting more money into the system, because once again, if you have data on an area and you're most likely to go to jail, then send tutors there, because the parents are in jail. So how is that kid going to learn?
Right.
That kid is just going through the motions. Yeah. Go to school, first grade, second grade, your parent is in jail, you have no one tutoring you. All right, there's nothing we can do in the back office. There's nothing we could do, they got to just graduate. The percentage says 50% is going to fail. All right, so we know that. Let's do something about it. And I think it starts with paying the teachers more, right? And then policing. Policing is super important, by the way, but then policing it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your mindset? I'm curious about that, because were you content about reaching that goal when you got to the NBA? Because that was something that you always wanted. And I feel like a lot of people, they have this goal in front of them. If I could just do this, then I know I'm going to be happy because I reached my ultimate goal, which was going to the NBA. When you made it to the NBA, I want to know, how did you feel, and were you satisfied?
That was never my main goal. My main goal was being my math teacher, junior high school. I wanted to make $35,000. You got to think about it. When I was young, my one of his biggest years was $48,000. His average years was 32, 35. And he took care of me, and I loved him. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I can make $35,000, that would be great. And I knew that the salaries for teachers, so that's what my goal was, to be a junior high school math teacher.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a junior high school math teacher. That's why when I got to the NBA, I worked at Target. I worked at Circuit City. Sorry, not Target. I worked at Circuit City. People said, Metta World Peace worked at Circuit City, Ron Artest at the time, because he didn't have no money. I'm like, for one, if I'm making $1 million, which is $999,000, my contract, half that is taxes anyway. So any family making $500,000 after tax, if it took them 10 years to build it up, that means they were working at Target anyway. right? So just because I'm in the NBA doesn't mean I can't get a job.
Right.
Right? Because I want to buy stuff. And what happens when you work at Circuit City? You get a discount. Like, so people were laughing about something. Like, I'm not a billionaire. I only got $500,000 after tax. Mm-hmm. I need a discount. So yes, I worked at Circuit City, during my rookie year.
And out of that $500,000, how many people were you taking care of? Because I feel like people just think, oh, that's just your money. But you got your family.
They don't see that part.
Siblings. Yeah. How are you managing that? Because I feel like at 17, 18, getting that type of money, how were you financially?
Well, I think wasn't managing it. I was having fun as a 19-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. I was in the club and I was going to the bar and buying bottles. Like every other,
right?
Big pimping.
You was living. Yeah.
That's what we was taught.
Yeah.
Yo, what we doing tonight? Mm-hmm. Ball till you fall. And that's the wrong messaging. Mm. You see what I'm saying? That's why I started listening to my own music, because I'm like, hold on. I got older, and I'm like, everything that they were telling me, I'm seeing these people with suits and ties, like they all evolve. Everybody evolves. Mm. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, Hov gonna be Hov forever. Jermaine Dupri gonna be Jermaine Dupri forever. So I'm like, that's how I'm coming. I'm from the hood. You know what I mean? And then when you see people evolve, it's like, hold on, you were telling me to do this, and you're not even doing that.
Right.
So from that perspective, this is another reason why I'm going back to school. And because I want people, if you're 19 years old and you're running into the bag, don't big pimp. Right? Go buy real estate.
Facts. Facts.
Right?
Yeah.
Big pimp on properties. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect, the song is great. Like, it is a good reference point.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the song, but it's a good reference point to make.
Yeah.
Because I was really influenced by sound waves and frequency and messaging and wording and people, icons.
Yeah. You said you started making your own music, which I love, by the way.
Some of it's good, some of it's not.
Champion specifically, I wanted to know, that was a song that you made that the year before and then that year after you won a championship. Mm-hmm. Were you aware that you were speaking it into existence? Because I know you said that the sound waves is powerful to you and the messaging is powerful. And the lyrics of that song really is a true manifestation of what happened a year later. Mm-hmm. Were you aware? You can be honest with me, because were you aware of it, or what were you thinking while you were writing the song, and where were you when you were writing that song?
Well, some things you said right now just hit home, but in terms of the title champion, I wanted a championship. I'm overly confident. I have a huge ego, which is not great, honestly, but I had to because I grew up with a big family, and all my friends is going to jail, and I have to make it.
Yeah.
And you get obsessed with So from being a champion, I did not lose a game in high school, my senior year, which is debatable. One game is debatable, but I don't want to get fully into that. I won in college. I won at every level. So I feel a certain way about myself, rightfully so, like any other human being. So 10 years into the league, I didn't have a championship. And I'm like, no way I'm leaving this thing without a championship. Well, now, keep in mind, I was playing with Kobe, okay?
Right.
Easier to win a title with Kobe, right?
Yeah.
And Powell. But I also feel a certain way about myself. So that song was made speaking into existence. But some of the bars in there, like, fourth quarter, that just hit me just now.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, Game 7, fourth quarter. That was wild. I just thought about that one.
That's why I was thinking that. I'm like, there's no way that. I mean, I guess there is, though, because I think when you put stuff out into the universe, and I just sense, just throughout your journey, you're truly a good person, no matter whatever was going on. And I just feel like it just happened that way, and you were grinding. It wasn't like you just said, I won a championship, and you weren't putting in the work.
No, we put in the work.
Right.
Yeah, we put in the work for sure. We were working hard.
Yeah.
Repetition. Sometimes people lack confidence because they don't prepare. So yeah, if you're not preparing and you're failing, you should still be confident. You're failing because you worked at that. Like, I think it's like a difference between, who you are, and then the perception you have of yourself and the perception people have of you. But you got to really believe in yourself.
Right.
Just because you're not great at one thing doesn't mean you're not great.
Great at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. I wanted to ask you, because you were playing with Kobe and we're in LA, so it's only right. I got to ask you. Yeah, we're in LA. So I have to ask you this, just because, I mean, playing with someone who impacted so many people and just his work ethic was insane.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And I know you got to witness it. So I wanted to dive into your routine, because I know you got to see Kobe in his prime, you know, working and, you know, doing his routine to be great. What was yours? Were you inspired by his routine, or how did you go about that hustle to be great?
Well, with Kobe, I was the best wing defender in my prime. Now, when you look at the greatest players of all time, and even in my era, you're going to mention a few people in 2000, from 2000 to 2010. Let's just talk about that.
Right.
When you talk about who is the greatest players in the league, well, you're going to think of offense. And who are you going to think of? Vince Carter, Kobe, Wade, Pierce, LeBron. That's offense. You got to play defense. And it was one elite player. It was a couple other ones, but when you talk about wing defense, that was me. So that was my territory. You see what I'm saying? So from that perspective, I felt a certain way about my defense, right? So I wasn't paying attention to the offensive players and their work ethic, because mine was level 10.
Right.
Right. So that was working out 4 times a day. That was, you know, my week was 9 days. I didn't take off the weekend. I took off after 9 days. Then I took off 1 day. And then my 9 days start over. And, you know, so when you talk about like being able to defend and having endurance, it just came from that.
Right.
You know, now when I got to the Lakers, I seen a different level of work. It wasn't that Kobe wasn't like working harder than me, but the way he worked. He took rest days.
Right.
And then on his on days, he was on, and he got better at everything in the weight room. Jab step, pivot right, pivot left, reverse pivot right, reverse pivot left, head fake, perfect, balance, endurance. And when I seen how he worked, I'm like, man, with me, I was focused on defense, some offense, but I wasn't focused on like the detail of the feet work, of the footwork. So I think Kobe took his work ethic to a whole nother level mentally. Yeah. Which made him, you know, arguably one of the greatest players ever.
Yeah. And that's why I was just interested to know about the consistency of it.
Yeah.
Because
on time.
And just managing it, because I feel like a lot of people, they get that spark of motivation, but the discipline is the lack.
Yeah, it was crazy because, like, for me, like, basketball is everything. Locking people up on defense was a major part of my life. So my agilities, my endurance, my yoga, my Pilates, you know, swimming, 7-hour days. That's four workouts a day, 7-hour days. And then, you know, you go out to dinner, you do that stuff, right? So I perfected that. At that time, I wasn't doing entrepreneurship. Just imagine, you know, going a year without building your plan, like planning your show. Imagine that. Right. I can't imagine that now. Yeah. I can't imagine me going a day without opening up my laptop and opening up 10 documents.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Whereas before, it was none of that. Yeah. But I did open up documents, but it was all in my head. Like every day was in my head. I'm going to do this every day because I want to be great next year. It wasn't no notes. It was just routine. Consistency on one thing. Right. It was offense, but mostly it was mostly defense, but it was a little offense in there also.
I want you to give some young entrepreneurs some advice on productivity, because I think a real key factor that you were saying, especially with success, is about your time management, because you spent so much time locked in on one thing because that was your job, you know, that's what you're doing. But now you're in a new seat as a CEO and building a business and with your agency. How do you manage your time to get things done? Because now I feel like it's so easy for you to say, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Then you wake up at 6 o'clock, you know what I mean? And then you're like, dang, the day's over. It starts all over again. So how do you go about using your time wisely and just, you know, managing your productivity and how much time you spend on one task? Yeah, you know?
I think to me, everything is numbers. To me, so setting deadlines, you know, I like numbers. I like people communicate with me in numbers. Right? Oh, we're going to do this? Okay, what day? are we doing this? Yeah. What time? How much? You know?
Yeah.
How many times? Like, I like to learn because now I know. Before, I wanted things to happen now. For example, when I was rapping while I was playing, I wanted to go platinum tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. I'm rapping now because Eminem is platinum and Nelly's platinum, and I love that.
Right.
Right. And I got a story too. I'm from the hood. Okay, I'm gonna go to the studio. I feel good. Yes, we're going diamond. Right? But it don't work like that. Right? You gotta build your fan base. You gotta work hard year after year after year. And at some point you build a fan base. So now from that whole journey in music as an artist, I have more patience with myself. You know, and I was also introverted back in the day. So now I have more. You know, when I'm doing business, I'm doing business. So I'm social. I'm not as introverted, and I know things take time. So I don't mind having to wait 4 years, 10 years for something to come to fruition. You know, where I didn't have that type of patience before.
Yeah.
So being productive is also setting a roadmap, setting a calendar, following your calendar, tracking the data. Like, what happened? I did this on this day. I expected this result or wanted this result. Oh, I didn't get that result. Well, what could I do so the next time I set a task, so in 20 days or whatever, that the result is met?
Right.
Right, and stuff like that. So I would say productivity also comes with patience, discipline, a calendar.
And a planner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Not just like, I got this idea in my head. And then you meet me tomorrow. We talk about business. All right, cool. And we do it again, and we do it next week. Okay, did anybody write anything down? Right, so that's also being productive. You can't keep everything up in here and expect to execute it. You have to put it, and that's another place where we make mistakes, as a culture.
Right.
Right, because we don't always have the necessary tools and the skill set or the education where we use programs like Excel or Google Sheets or Canva, right?
Yeah.
And it takes somebody that has a great idea. It would take them 10 years to, I'm going to start using Google Sheets, right? Where you should, so it's like that type of stuff. Also, not trying to do everything on your own. Because we grow up, our culture, we grow up, if there's 50 cents here every day and you don't know it and I know it, I'm going to go get it every day. I'm not going to tell you where it's at. There's no collaboration. We need to collaborate. Every day is going to be 50 cents here. Let's split it. Oh, and let's take it and let's see how we can make another $1 together.
Right.
Not like, I'm going to make $1 and I'm not going to tell you how
Why
I
do you
made
think
$1.
that is? Why do you think there's this mindset of it's mine? I don't want to share. I don't want people to know about what I'm doing. I want to grind and make it on my own. And then, like you said earlier, you even mentioned it. It makes so much sense about waiting for someone else to give you the opportunity or thinking there's something better. Why do you think people don't want to, especially young people, why is it so hard for us to collaborate, you think?
I think it's just DNA, because if you see us not collaborating, you're not going to do it. Y'all, the younger generation looks up to us as we looked up to everyone in front of us, specifically on television, right? Maybe sometimes it's in our neighborhoods, but sometimes we don't take the value and the morals we learned from the older generation in our neighborhoods. They was telling us, but we weren't listening. We were listening to the television. Right? When we should have been listening to even though they're not successful, they're not millionaires, they have valuable information. They have love in their heart. They have a brain, right? Just because their brain is not living in a upper echelon neighborhood doesn't mean they don't still have a brain and love and compassion. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I think we forget that.
Yeah.
And in terms of collaboration, it goes back to our DNA code. We came here on a slave ship. Well, not everybody is up for debate. I'm okay for all the conspiracy theories, whatever you want to. It's up for debate because we don't know fully. But we were trying to survive.
Yeah.
The woman was separated from the men, and we need to eat. You can't go 10 days without eating. So if I found a piece of bread, I'm going to go get that piece of bread. I'm not going to collaborate with you on one loaf or one slice,
Yeah.
And that's how we grow up. So I think that's why meditation is so important. Taking a beat is so important, right? To just put things in perspective. And collaboration is extremely important.
Yeah.
Right? You're stronger together, and you can't let people take you apart. And before you even come together, you can't let people not let you come together, keeping you apart.
Right.
Right? Collaboration is key. You don't need to, if it's $1 million on the table, split 500 with your partner. Split it 4 ways. That's 250,000 for everybody.
Right.
Now go make the next 250,000. Right? And do it together.
Most definitely. I want to get into a little bit. I don't see you talk about this much. So I want to ask you, because you had your first child really early on. And a lot of teens and a lot of people in their 20s, they think about love and relationships. Were you that way? Like, we're thinking about wanting to be locked in and committed with somebody early on in life?
For sure. I always wanted to be married. I wanted my first child at 13. I had my first godson at 13 years old.
What?
Yeah, this one lady, we was the same age. She got pregnant at 13, wasn't with the guy. And I know her, and I remember her being pregnant day after day, the baby coming. And I'm like, you need me to help you babysit? And this is when I'm 13 grinding on the court.
Right.
So when I'm coming home at night, I go right to her house, go grab the baby, take the baby, give her a break. She out partying. I'm like taking care of the baby while she's partying right next to me. But I'm babysitting right now. It's my godson.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think he's 24, 25, maybe even 26 right now.
Oh my God.
Maybe even older.
Yeah.
He reached out to me on Instagram one time. It was crazy. He's still my godson, but we just lost contact. So we grew up in the R&B era.
Yeah.
And that's 90s. It was a great era, and it was all about love. It was about, I want to be with you. It's a great era.
Yeah.
I think it's coming back now, but I think in the same breath, it was also music where the disrespect to women was okay. We also grew up in that era, right? And if that messaging is getting in your head, you got the Mary J. Blige, you got, R. Kelly music was out. Jodeci music was out. Boys and Men music was out. Then you had other music that was out. So you're listening to both.
Right.
So now if you're being inspired by both, you're becoming bipolar, by the way. Right? In one breath, you're saying, I want a bunch of, girlfriends. In the other breath, you're saying, I'm trying to be in a relationship. Well, that don't work. How is that going to work?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to be really careful on how you let music influence you.
What did you learn in your first relationship, and what have you learned in your current marriage now? Like, what do you think it's taught you? Because you've always been like a lover and wanted to be in a relationship and have that. But I'm curious to know, like, what did you learn? What were the lessons?
Yeah, I met my first when I was 15 years old. And that it didn't last, it lasted 17 years, a long time for a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
It's 31 years old. And then, I just think like, everybody's trying to, man or woman, obviously people are lesbians, some people are gay, whatever the case may be. We just talk about relationship perspective, a man and woman. I think in America, you are looking for that one, right? Because, it's not a bad thing, right? It's okay. Like, hey, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have children, and and I want a picket fence with dogs, and I think people think like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's okay. And sometimes messaging can get distorted. Your goals can get distorted for many different reasons. But from that perspective, I think just because you made mistakes, it doesn't mean you can't give out, hey, this is what I would have done, young lady or young man, right? It doesn't mean you can't give back good ideas,
right,
or good concepts. So that's what I learned. I learned like to give it back.
Yeah.
Right. And much success, to you if you are in a relationship, like much success to you.
For sure. I want to know, because you're such an advocate for mental health, and the first time I got to meet with you, we got to, speak about mental health during May, which was like the awareness month. So do you think early on, because I know you had your struggles and your challenges and things like that, especially earlier into your career, do you think you were set up for success with your mental health journey?
I think mental health, it's an open-ended term. And so we got to fix the term. Is it negative? Is it positive? Is it neutral? If I say you have mental health issues, what does that mean? Does that mean like you're just bad, you're crazy, you're bipolar? Or does it mean like, damn, it looked like you happy? So nobody can determine. So that's something that I was like, okay, what are you talking about when you say mental health may? Right? Is it for only people that's struggling? What about telling stories of people that's not struggling? What about telling mental health stories on families that are together? How did you do it? How did you raise your child? Right? And you still want the other stories, like Metta, how did you redeem yourself? Like you still get, now you got both stories. So I think wellness is a great term.
Yeah.
Because wellness is a little bit more uplifting. I think mental health, that term is so sharp.
Right.
You know? And it also is generalized. So you know, in our community, sometimes they'll just give everybody the same medication. Level 1, level 2, level 3, or whatever the case may be, misdiagnosing, individuals. So, for me, it was also some people have been through things in their environment. So, if you've been through things in your household as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old, it's not that you're call it mentally ill or crazy or whatever. You've been through something. So now we need to help you.
Right.
Because you're okay.
Yeah.
Right? Your heart is in a good place. And you know what? We're going to help you feel good again.
Yeah.
Not that, oh, you're crazy. Oh, but what they used to do when we first came onto the scene, you're a thug. So you're going to call somebody else's child a thug because you can. Because you feel that empowered. And you feel that protected, that calling someone else's child a thug, that parent is not going to have a problem with you because you never have to see that parent. So you can hide behind your screen. See these thugs, So from that, I got a different perspective.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, on mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to know something. How do you create calm for yourself? Because I feel like there's so many chaotic things that happen that life just throws at us. So how do you now create calm when there is chaos for yourself?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the things is, finding things that you could attach yourself to, right? So I think the higher power is one. When you look at the stars, and not enough of us get to stargaze. If you drive an hour out from some of the communities that you're in, you're going to see a sky full of stars like you feel like you're in space. People don't even understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't understand that. You could stargaze also.
Yeah.
You drive an hour out of Indiana into the field, Pennsylvania, Denver, all these places in America, and that gives you power, right? Because it's like we all are under the same stars.
Yeah.
And the stars are so aligned.
Yeah.
Every day you're going to see it, this star, same distance, it's not changing. So from that perspective, my calm comes from knowing that. I don't need to change anything. I just need to move on with my day.
Yeah.
And everything else is happening around. Some of it's not in my reality. Yeah, I might have some good days and bad days, or good points and bad points in my own reality, but things on the outside, that's not necessarily my thing to deal with. So I don't have to take that burden on. So if somebody's saying, "Metta, you jumped into the stands," millions of people used to, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, somebody hit me with something, I jumped into the stands, and I'm just gonna go get coffee today.
Yeah. You're so past that, though. Does it bother you when people still ask you about that? No?
I'll be moving on with my day so much. I really love what I'm doing. I went back to school. I'm working on building CRMs. I acknowledge it because some people get off on it. "Metta, what's up, man? You used to be tough." And I'll be like, "Yeah, man. Finish. I know you just met me." I do like to let people,
reminisce.
Feel good and reminisce. But I'm totally moving on.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you've done a lot of things in your life. I feel like you've lived life to the fullest. You have walked through every door possible. I looked at your IMDb. It is ridiculous. You've done Dancing with the Stars. You've done music videos. You've produced movies. You've been in movies. Why is it that and then you just did The Masked Singer not too long ago.
Yeah.
So, and I just wonder why is it important for you to just go through different experiences? Because I feel like a lot of people feel like they're above stuff, or they're like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not for me. But you seem like you walk through every single door that's been available to you. And why is that?
Well, sometimes I don't want to do stuff. And then, like, you know, I get a lot of requests. Like, I didn't really want to go on The Masked Singer, but they did want me to come on. And then my family said I should go on. I met with them. They were very nice. And they really wanted me. So I said, okay, this is really out of my scope, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I do spread myself thin in terms of like giving my time. I don't know. I feel like if somebody wants you to do something, you know, if you can help them, do it. But you can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm super curious. I do love entertainment. I kind of got away from entertainment over the last couple of years because I just felt like people that's putting together programming were taking advantage of personalities, you know, and then taking those personalities and just putting a narrative on those personalities.
Right.
Feeding the beast, feeding fans, all this stuff. So I really, I do want people to control their narrative, so I feel like that's something that's missing. I don't know, but I really do love entertainment. You know, I'm curious more. I question everything now, though.
Yeah.
Before I say, yeah, I want to do it. I mean, I love comedy. You know, I love comedy. I don't like the narrative, all the narratives that's being pushed, but I like to have fun. I'm not having as much fun because there's certain things I would have done in my 20s. Like, I like to act a fool. I'm 44, so not now. But in my 20s, I want to do extreme stuff on television. Yeah. Like, I want to take it there like every other comedian. Right? But then sometimes, you know, you can't take it there because I'm like, wow, certain narratives are being pushed. So I got to dial back a little bit.
Right.
I might become more conservative now.
So how do you figure out what's authentic to you then?
Well, what's authentic to me is producing and like, you know, doing stuff I want to do. So I turn down a lot. As much as I can, I turn down because I love comedy. I feel like I'm not as open as I would have been because of the trauma I've experienced and narratives that's being set. But, you know, I love comedy. I love having fun on television, you know, but sometimes you never know how they're going to edit.
Right.
You know, so it's hard to it's hard to have a lot of fun because you don't have any control. And now they can just do stuff without your approval.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy to me. You know, they can do stuff without your approval, so you don't have as much control as you think.
I wanted to ask you too, because I know you mentioned in an interview that you had, especially with this lane that you've done, especially after retirement, going back to school and, you know, studying social media and AWS and doing all those things. I'm curious to know, just because you were talking about a shoe deal that you had in the past, and then an event happened and it made that go away. What advice do you have for young people to protect their brand and build their brand on social media?
Yeah, I think build your brand for sure. Protect your brand. Understand you got to understand your data. We have thousands of data points that are super valuable, and some people don't know how to access that. And you can use that to your advantage when you get older, when nobody wants to work with you anymore. You can independently become successful and grow when you're off of traditional or mainstream media or social media. So I think people should understand their brand, build their brand. Obviously, social media is a great place. If I could do it over, I would have studied first, set my infrastructure first, and then marketed my brand. And a brand, and I didn't understand what a brand was, but sometimes people manage our brands, not control, but manage our brands. If I'm playing in the NBA, the NBA manages my brand. And then you got other companies that can also co-manage your brand. But if you're not being serviced by bigger companies, being marketed or having endorsements, then your brand it's not flexible. It's only in the environment that you're seen in. But if you don't know how to brand yourself, then you're just going to be stuck, in that one light. Right, but if you understand how to, manage your brand and market your brand, then you can sell stuff on Shopify. You can go do an appearance. You can go do a basketball camp. You can go sell sneakers seasonally. You could do so many different things just by marketing your brand, but you got to have the infrastructure set up.
Right.
You know, how are you capturing, where are you capturing revenue from? Right? Is it advertisement, sponsorship? Is it e-commerce channels? You know, where are you giving your time at? How are you capturing data? Do you understand who will buy your shoes? Do you understand who wants to see you at a basketball camp? Do you understand all this stuff? And if you don't, then you're missing out big time.
I wanted to ask you a few more things. You've always been a student of the game, and I feel like you've just had so many experiences with so many amazing players and just people that have come through your life. But there's 3 people that I want to get your take on, and just what you've experienced just from being around them and working with them and having a relationship with Kobe, Lamar, and you played with MJ. You defended him before. So I wanted to ask you about those 3 people and what experiences did you gain from them? What did you learn from those relationships?
Absolutely. Well, Lamar, I start with Lamar. I met Lamar when I was 11 at DS Park, Queens, Ravenswood, Queens. First time I ever played against Lamar. The next year, he comes back 6 inches taller. So now he's like 6'7", I'm 6'1", you know, and he's just growing and balling as a 13-year-old. And he got MVP sophomore year in the high school, Catholic high school division. We played basketball together from the ages of 13 to like 16 with Riverside Church, AAU basketball. And we grew a bond. He was always like second best on the team. Elton Brand was always the number 1. Me and Eric Barkley was always 3 and 4, and then it was just filtered down. Yeah. So me and Lamar got a long relationship, 7 days apart with our birthdays. His is November 6th, I'm November 13th. He got drafted number 4, I got drafted 16th, same year. And then we got a championship together 10 years later. So our history runs real deep. And we grew our relationship on the basketball court. Simple as that. But I got a chance to know him. He's such a loving, warm guy.
Yeah.
You know, Michael Jordan, you know, obviously a fan, got a chance to play against Michael. So one cool story is when in 2004, it was only 1 Jordan player per team. So only 1 person could wear Jordans out of all the Nike people. So I was wearing Nikes. I didn't have a contract with Nike at the time. I was just wearing Nikes. And I wanted to wear Jordans because Jordan was coming into Indiana. Yeah. Right? So I'm like, I'm wearing Jordans against MJ. And then they was like, no, you can't wear Jordans. Reggie Miller's the Jordan guy. And I said, nah, I'm wearing Jordans today. Ain't no way in the world I'm not wearing Jordans today. Because this is MJ's probably last game. So then Nike was like, nah. I tried to order it through the store. They was like, we don't have any more size 16. I said, this is crazy. I always order size 16s. So I drove right after shoot-around practice, ended at like 10:30. I drove 3 hours to Chicago, went to the Nike store, bought me some Jordans, drove 3 hours back. So now you count, that's 1 o'clock. I got back at maybe 4 or 5, and I was playing in Jordans that day. And they all saw it. Oh I had Jordans on my feet. It was a long travel day. He gave us 40 that day, too. and I was a little stale, but I think that's the reason. He would have got 30. But he wouldn't have got 40 if I didn't have to drive 6 hours. Maybe he would have got 20. I don't know. But I played against Jordan. It was the ones with the wings.
Yeah, you was serious. You was serious. And I wanted to know your experience with Kobe because you played with him and won a championship with him. So what experience or just advice maybe did you receive from him? And
yeah, Kobe's a funny story. I played against Kobe for the first time when I was 14 years old. He was 15 in Providence in high school. I had Sham got on my team, Shaheem Holloway, a couple other players. And then the next time I played against Kobe was rookie year in Chicago. We beat them twice that year. That's when the Lakers won a championship, but we beat them by 1 in Chicago and by 1 in LA. And we was the worst team in the league. So we got, I don't know how we did that, but we beat them twice. And then I played against him because in my prime, I was suspended a lot. So every time I'm about to play against Kobe, I'm like not there. I'm suspended. So I played against Kobe in Indiana, I don't even know, maybe once, honestly. And then I got to Sacramento when I got traded. Then the rivalry had started. So I would say 2006, that's when our rivalry kind of really started, even though he was levels above. And then in 2010, seeing his work ethic, he carried us. He carried us.
Yeah. I love that. And I want you to give just our audience, you've been amazing. And I'm just blown away by your story and just your overall being and your presence. You're just amazing. So I wanted to ask you 4 pieces of advice you could give Gen Z to set them up for success in their future.
One would be learn your history. That's the most important. Learn your family history, for sure. Carry your tradition and carry your family history with you. That should be first. And then be curious. Be curious about everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Metta, for coming on Set Up for Success. That is a wrap on the podcast. You shared some amazing stories. I'm so grateful that you're here, and we'll have you back as well because I know you got more stories to tell. So thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me on Set Up for Success with Sarah Lee.
Yes.
And I'm really excited and looking forward to your journey.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.